right, 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM listeners, we got one of the best West Coast artists right here on the line. We got Bas-1 of Cytoplasmz. How you doing this evening?
I'm quite well, thank you. How you doing, good sir?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. But I do know you're a really busy guy, man, so I'm just going to jump right into this. But I have to ask you, what made you decide to get into the music industry?
Um, Man, I guess it called me, man. To be honest with you, I started from dancing first. Back in like '77, roboting, and then my family are really big about pronunciation and articulating vocabulary, and then rap came along, and it just coincided. It just coincided as far as musically and culturally.
And also, July 9th of 1985, so I'm probably taking you way back, you actually wrote your very first rhyme. Can you tell us a bit more about that, and what can you recollect from that rhyme after all these years?
Um, the main thing is that people were rhyming or freestyling and playing around previous to that. And that's what I was doing. But at July 9th, that's when it got serious. That's when it was like, nah, I'm really doing the music thing. It's not a play thing. And the first rhyme that I wrote with that purpose in mind was catered after the style of Curtis Blow. Um, the two fragmented rhyme style, which was more old school at the time. It wasn't, the Run DMC thing that had came in and become popular of the moment, or the Slick Dougie thing that was, popular at that moment. So I did it consciously.
And when you said you said Curtis Blow, he as you said, he pretty much like kind of, mentored you. Did you ever get the opportunity to meet Curtis Blow after becoming really big within the music industry?
Actually, yeah, I met Curtis Blow, but it wasn't actually from the music, man. I'm actually a member of a group called Style Elements. It's a crew, and we won Battle of the Year in 1997, which was a world event. And K Blow actually was always into b-boying, and he actually had Air Force dancing for him as his dancers. And so a lot of the members of that crew are friends of ours, and he had some other b-boys with him as well while he was touring. So there's been many a time where we've connected up and whatnot. But it wasn't just only Kurt Blow, but that particular rhyme and me deciding to make it serious was based on that, and that's why I acknowledge him from that. But in actuality, I'm a descendant of Grandmaster Caz style more so than anyone else's. I do acknowledge Cool Mo D and of course the Trench 3, but I would argue that it was Grandmaster Caz's style, not even Melly, more Caz's style that held me.
And also in '93, you were actually on Digital Underground Return of the Crazy One release. I have to ask you, how did you get connected with Digital Underground?
Yeah, actually, I was on the remix for that. Yes. What ended up happening was I knew Chopmaster J, Jimmy Drake. Back in the day, that's when Greg and them, Shock and them, had did underwater rhymes and whatnot. And Dion Evans, which was a member of their crew, and his big brother James. were doing bodyguard work for digital. It just is more being in the right area at the right time. And not a lot of people was doing rap during that time. It was new. So, 93, I was actually rhyming, one. Two is I was writing for a magazine, and I went over and was doing an interview, but I also knew this guy, Dillenstein, who actually was one of my mentors and actually came up with the concept for Sons of the P, digital second album release. And within that, when I came into the studio during the interview, then, everything just was clicking and we was chilling and they were recording and, Shot just was like, yo, why don't you jump on? And so, that's what it was. And doing the chorus and singing backgrounds and whatnot. And I appreciated that Shot actually gave me credited. He put name credits on mine.
And when we were actually talking on the phone, just chopping it up a couple days ago, you actually brought up to me about how you were at Shock G's wedding on a big giant cruise ship, and Tupac was there, man. I was actually wondering, could you actually tell our live listeners that crazy story about Pac, like actually just being on the boat and Shock G's wedding? Like, what was that experience like?
Yeah. So as far as I was saying that I knew Pac from different angles. But that particular night was real crazy. It was, a lot of celebrities and whatnot. Raphael Sadiq was there, and it just was really bananas. And early on in the day, Pac came on to the ship. It was like a cruise ship on like Pier 51 out in San Francisco, which is down the block from Fisherman's Wharf. And Pac was signing autographs. He was real nice and cordial. And then when the sun came down and we're on the dance floor, then he's like, got two blunts in his mouth and got like 3 or 4 chicks on him. And this is after I Get Around had came out. And he's like, they recognize the Pac, baby. They recognize the Pac. And we're on the dance floor together and whatnot. And so, that was when he was, the other Pac. the Pac that, everybody else is talking about, where he's spitting on the police and, shooting at the police. And, I guess I wouldn't even go into the East Coast, but I would just say where he really was flagging hard about who he was.
And that's true, you know what I mean? One thing I did notice when he really started getting pissed off at a lot of things was with that Diana Jackson stuff. That to me, that's when he really started being pissed off.
Yeah, well, I mean, Pac had a whole lot of different angles about him. When Juice came out, it initially flopped in the theaters. Well, when it came out to rentable, meaning like on video, it was a hit. It was getting rented, and people were watching it and paying to rent it a lot, and that's when it blew up. And that's when his persona started to change a bit more. And that's when he started doing and working on Strictly for My Niggas. And he was kicking it with, Richie Rich from Oakland and whatnot. There's just different personalities of Pac. There's no one, particular Pac definition.
And also, you were also the creator of the rap crew, Cytoplasmz. I have to ask you, tell our listeners a bit more about that formation, and how did you and the other members actually meet?
That's a great question. What ended up happening is that I was in the military for 4 years, 4.5 years. And I ended up about 94. Well, not around 94, at 94. And so, a friend of mine, who later became my rap partner, Adari Davis, was teaching school at Berkeley High, along with superstar Kwame Law, and Defari Hayru was there as well. And so within that, what ended up happening was that he had some students, and from that, he wanted me to mentor them and teach them, like the real stuff, not the schooling stuff, not the PC stuff, meaning politically correct stuff, but doing actual. And so that's where I came in at. Originally, it just was a continuation of there was a bunch of us. So Hyro was known as the Mad Circle. This is like 87, 88. And then I was in a crew called the Isosceles Triangle. And so we all was at the Onion Lab. Well, when Hyro became Hyro from the Mad Circle, certain members of the Mad Circle were no longer Hyro, but we all still hung and kicked it together. And so what I wanted to do was have a clique where we're a group, but they didn't have to really just trip on like it's our thing. And so that's when the name Cytoplasm came about, because your actual group or the thing that you do is your nucleus. And so when you're outside of your nucleus, that became a cytoplasm, i.e., if there was a group, but then they did something with another group, then that became a cytoplasm. So that ended up overtaking the thing with what I did with the kids. It was very big, whereas in the other members of the Mad Circle ended up going on to do like sanitation department and a couple of other things. But I also, during that time, simultaneously was working with this thing called the Underworld, which ended up turning into the Living Legend.
And also, going back to the 80s, my apologies for messing up the timeline here, but I also just remembered that you were actually involved in aerosol art, also known as graffiti art, under the names Menace Blend and Mad Fat. I have to ask you, what made you actually decide to get into graffiti, and do you still do graffiti art to today?
I gotta stop you for a second. It's a thorn in my side when people use the G word, and I'm gonna answer your question, but I would like to say that that particular word has a connotation of teenage juvenile crime, and it's more of writing or style writing or aerosol writing. That particular word was created by the media to demean writers, and in itself is to where you wouldn't think of somebody being like 65 years old or even having a history that connects with the beginning of writing, predating the alphabet. So that's one. As far as me writing, hip hop was new back then, and when I say hip hop, I'm talking about the overall culture. We did everything back then. You danced, you were was the dancer, that was the writer, that was the MC, that was the DJ, that was the participants as well as the audience. The audience were participants, even if they weren't practitioners, and we took pride in what we did. And all we wanted to do is be acknowledged, like we're not trash. We're not the trash of society. We have more to offer than just, back in the day, people would be like, oh, you do that street dance, you just spin on your head and play that boonka boonka music. And they weren't respecting it. Yeah? And so now that it's $1 billion industry and it dominates the world, I just really, have a pride in that, for my particular perspective. I try to embody that and pass that on, not only just with, the people that I mentored or worked with, but also just in my lifestyle, and I try and push that on to other people because what hip hop really does is it encourages you to be the best you can be through whatever struggle.
And also, one thing I did notice as well that you are also a contributing creator and advisor for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame exhibit in San Francisco. I have to ask you, like, what's the story behind that, and how did that come to be for you?
There was a lot of politics going on at that time, and so I got a call from like Pop Master Fable and Chrissy B, who was the head of the at that time, and some other very prominent people, and they were like, "Yo, man, they did this and this at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame exhibit out here because the original exhibit was in Ohio, and that ended up having a bunch of controversy around it. People were sitting up talking about how Rocksteady crew was really, really more prominent than whoever they claimed were the creators or something. That exactly. And so, as they said, oh well, the electric boogaloo created pop. It was like they didn't create pop, you know. And then you also had, people who were generations before legs even got on. So, we're talking about, well, Rock Steady is later in the game anyway, but, like the Twins and the original B-Boy, Grand Mix of DST, people like that were actual the first generation. And so they were invested in saying, hey, make sure that this highest standard of achievement in just pulling out a coach. Well, what I learned was that they simply just put together an exhibit with no care, no fact basing. They don't even try and track down the facts, even if it's available. And I feel highly offended when people do that to our culture or to my culture. I don't know who else feels that they hip hop, but I know that I regard that my culture.
So I have to ask you, Bas-1, what's next for you? Like, is there any new projects you're currently working on? Anything else you want to promote? We still have you here live on the radio station.
Yeah, actually, I appreciate it. I actually here with you Shy from Cyto, but we're no longer with Cyto. That was years ago. I did a project called for the mentally astute theory of the grow up years ago. I think that's a good breadcrumb to people if they want to really know about hip hop. If they are into real hip hop, that will work as well. But if they're not, they're just curious. I think it's a good list. Right now, myself and Q Shy and Knock Max are a group called That's What It Is. It's available on YouTube, on iTunes, Spotify. I say YouTube because you can check it out for free. Everybody wants to talk about money, how their money's hungry. And don't get me wrong, I'm not really trying to be broke like I need to be big. But what I do feel is that, you should put your money where your mouth is, and you should be about the overall culture. I appreciate people from Canada. Big shout outs to all the dancers out of Toronto and whatnot. Bag of Tricks. Big up to Gizmo and Denso. And then also, the producers. I like K Kanata and whatnot. I think that overall, it's an overall culture. It's a global phenomenon where it brings everybody together as one. And so that's what I more want to try and promote to the listeners. I'm not really tripping so much as on rap anymore. I'm more into doing this electronic funk thing, but because I did it for so long and I'm so good at it, that's why, I actually did this project. That's what it is. But Q Shy is continuing on the legacy, and definitely have some incredible music that we've already done and recorded. And then also I worked with a guy named Jiku, who's the right hand man of Take One, and actually did the Bad and Bushy track, as well as the co-rock flow with De La Soul and Doom. So it shows the diversity of music. Right now that I think is what's important. People being about music as well as dancing style elements. We're about to have 25th or 26th year anniversary. We're doing it online as far as on Zoom for people to be involved. I know this pandemic is very scary of the world, but in America they used to rub mercury, raw mercury in black people's back just with terms and like this, and we're still alive. So I can't really be afraid of it. So that's what I would pass on to your listeners.
And I do want to say, Bas-1, I know you're not very big on the whole social media tip of things. But if you do have any social media or any ways that people can reach out to you, if you can drop them handles or even an email or something like that. If not, I was wondering if you want to drop any shout outs at all for our listeners. Anyone else you happen to miss? Anyone else you would like to still bring up?
Yeah, actually, like I said, you guys can check out styleelements.com, which is, or styleelementscrew.com. I apologize. That's my breaking through. But also, you can check out that D like dog, A, T like Tom, C like Sue, W H social media, I'm not a little kid, and I'm from a different time frame. Like, I believe in, if I know you, I know you, or I reach out to get to know you. I think that things need to be more personable, not so behind the keyboard. You know, that's just my particular thing. I want to actually come and shake your hand, you know, say what's up, so you really feel the energy. That's interaction. Now, we're not robots. That's what I feel the internet is doing. And there's having people to, you know, create things called trolls or people follow people to cause chaos. I don't dig that, and I think that the world, you know, if you did that back in the day, somebody would just act. So you knew not to do. You know, you knew not to do that. Um, that's that's pretty much how I look at it. And why I'm not a social media. But it'll end up being people who you know deal with my business. They'll have the that's what it is moniker for Instagram, Twitter, stuff, you know. But right now it's very low key, but you can hit the email, or you can just check things out on Spotify or YouTube. Like I said, YouTube is free. It doesn't cost you. Guys like it, share it, download it, tell it to your friends. That's what I would add. And I thank you for your time.
You're most certainly welcome. I want to say, Bas-1, thank you so much again for coming up on 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM. It was an absolute honor and most definitely a privilege, man. I hope down the road we can make this happen again.
Okay, sounds great, man. I appreciate your time, and thank you for looking out for me, and thank you for your work. I mean, you know, I think that it's real important for a DJ to spread the word and spread the music. You know, I'm sure that right now there's a whole lot of music coming out, and there's a lot of things that fall through the cracks, and you're making it so that people, you know, catch certain things that would have fell through the cracks. And that's a big, you know, thing. That's a huge thing that you're doing for the overall culture.
And I appreciate those kind words, man. I really do. Thank you so much, Bas-1. It means a lot coming from a legendary individual like yourself.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that you would call me a legend. Thank you. I just put on my pants like everybody else, and you know, I would tell you right now that more so than anything is that we're lucky that we're able to talk with each other in the midst of all this space. You know, people are doing riots out here. People are killing people and whatnot. I mean, they've always been killing people, but luckily I'm not one of them who they kill. So take advantage of me while I'm alive.
But hopefully that doesn't happen for a very, very long time, man. I'm pretty sure you're gonna be with us for a long time, man. I don't think you're gonna go out like that, man.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's a reality. I tell you what, man. That police brutality is reality in America, bro. I can tell you that right now. Racial relations is reality in California. I know it's known as a liberal spot, but man, they got a lot of racist cats out here. Let alone they got a lot of people who your own color who hate them. I mean, it's dangerous just being a human being and living. It's pretty crazy. And so I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm just telling people to be aware and to be appreciative of what they have, you know, because it can go away. Just like, you know, there was a time frame when you were able to just gallivant, you know, throughout the world. You can't do that anymore, right? Take advantage of what you can and be appreciative of it while you can.
And that's true. I do want to say, man, thank you so much again for providing not only myself but the listeners with your time, and of course, you know, be safe out there during this terrible pandemic and with all those riots as well, man.
I appreciate that, good sir. And yeah, my man Q Shy is here as well. Side of me, he did with pleasures. Track is the producer of it, and yeah, like I said, check out That's What It Is, because that's what it is. One love, y'all.
One love. Have yourself a wonderful night, brother.
All right, likewise, good sir.